Welcome back to the I Drink From Skulls podcast. It's your host, Matt Smith here. And with me today, I have the Terror from Tampa, founder and CEO of South Shore Roofing and Exteriors, a family man, and a dude who's done some pretty cool stuff, going from $0 to $12 million per year in just 3 years, Mr. Corey Combs. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, Matt. I like it, the Terror from Tampa.
Yeah, I just came up with that one. I was trying to come up with something. The trusted guy from Tampa, terrorizer from Tampa. I had to come up with something. That's what I do.
I like it, man. We'll go with that.
Let's go. I drink from skulls. Drink from the skulls of my enemies.
So, my man, who is Corey? Who is Corey Combs?
That is I think that's a multifaceted question, man. I'm a husband, I'm a business owner, and I'm a person in recovery. I'm a lot of things, man. And it's changed a lot throughout the years, man, and I think that now, if I had to put my finger on an identity, I think I just want to be a guy that leaves a positive impact on people. I've been thinking a lot about that lately, man.
I love that. And I see you sort of living that out in, where we've been connected for quite a while now, the value that you share, trying to help people in the industry and even, just business and people in general. So I definitely see you living that out. How long in recovery? We have that in common.
So December 28th was 12 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's great. I'd probably be about the same. What are we in 2023? Yeah, it'd be about the same, 11 to 12 years.
And that's, 100%, abstinent from everything. That's just my personality, man. I'm all or nothing. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
things have changed a lot since sobering up, man, for sure.
I love that. I think I saw you post something about that or talk about that like whatever the person's journey is cool, whether fully, not touching anything includes alcohol or it doesn't. It just depends on the person, whether it was drugs or whatever their addiction is. It's independent to them. And I took a lot out of that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was an interesting question. It was like, what's your view on recovery or something to that effect? And
that was it.
I think for me personally, I look at it as abstinence from all drugs, but some people, they get off the hard stuff and they smoke weed or whatever it is. And that's great. Yeah. Like whatever your journey is, I'm not one of those sticklers. It's like, you're whatever, like it's fine. To thine own self be true is probably one of the best things you can live by, because it really doesn't matter if you're living a good life and it's what you want. It doesn't matter. Now, if you say that I'm in recovery, I think we might need to define that, because I think that's a really specific thing that, is abstinence from all mood and mind altering chemicals. And that's just how I view it.
I think a lot of people that are watching or listening along are going to get some benefit from that, because there's I think there's a very common thing here with the addictive personalities. It seems to be very common in the roofing and business space. So appreciate you sharing.
It's really, I think it's one of the things that makes some of us successful. It's that fear of like never being good enough. And I think that is most of the people I've talked to in recovery, they just feel uncomfortable. They feel uncomfortable with their skin. It's the fear of not being good enough. It's, all of these things that are coupled with some sort of trauma, that most people I've talked to have. And when you take away the substances, you still have that, that drive that I don't know if I'm good enough. So I'm just going to work my ass off. And some of it is just like, I have this thing where I don't ever feel like I do enough. And I've gotten a lot better at that the last couple of years. And I think with that, I've been able to like focus a little bit more on helping other people and being less self-absorbed, because I think that's another thing in addictive people. We get really self-absorbed and zeroed in on what we're doing. And the people in my life, they pay the price for that. And so, I told this when I was doing the podcast with Joseph Hughes, but it was just such a interesting moment. Like I have a friend who, Dave Carroll from Dope Marketing, was talking to him, and my name came up, and Dave, we don't know each other, right? But he said, man, that dude seems kind of angry, right? Just from some of the stuff that he fires off at people, and my buddy's like, no, he's a great dude, and then he told me about it. He's like, Dave, his interaction with David. And I said, you know what, Dave, I messaged him. I said, I appreciate you saying that, man, because you never really know how you come off until somebody just pulls off the gloves and just says whatever, and I really appreciated that. And I, at that point I was like, man, I think I need to take a different tact and come from a different vantage point that's going to permeate all the way through my life. And that's been really where I focus on, just trying to be more helpful and genuine with people, because that's really how I want to not only behave, but that's how I want to come off as well.
Yeah. I guess I could see how Dave would have seen it that way, not knowing you, but like having known you, and we've known each other for quite a while now. Some of it's out of love and a bit of frustration to the roofing industry, and a lot of it's tongue in cheek too. And we have that in common. So I could see from an outsider looking in, it could look like a little bit of anger.
I grew up in,
but I know.
Yeah, I grew up in the trades, man. I mean, you fuck with people. That's just the way it is, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not busting balls, are you really in the trades? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
I'd love to go.
I was going to say. So I think I think the last thing I want to say about that is I think what really did me a lot of good was we were watching a football game, and I think everybody in American football, not soccer, and one of the guys got hurt, Damar Hamlin, he got hurt, and the reaction that everybody had to that was just of the most care. And all the teams acted so classy. All the coaches acted really classy. I mean, the whole sport and the whole country was just concerned about this young man and, his well-being. And it really got me thinking. I thought a lot about that, man. And I was like, these guys are super competitive. They all want to win. They all want to have the best team. And yet they put everything aside and just, prayed for this guy, talked about, helping him. I mean, all of these different things. So it really showed me, like, when you have a united goal, how powerful that is. And so, I've been talking to a lot of guys, and I really have, even locally reached out to some business owners, roofing company owners that we've kind of chatted over the years. And I'm like, hey guys, let's get together once or twice a month and, just have like an owner's breakfast and talk, and support each other and help each other not only deal with, because this is a hard business, man. You gotta have some thick skin or else it'll eat your lunch, And that's really kind of where I'm at for 2023, is just really making that a goal of mine and make it a reality so that we can really come together with a common goal, which is to elevate the industry without the profit motive. That's the key.
Yeah. We're not saying we hate money.
We're not saying we hate money. What I'm saying is we're not selling anything other than trying to help each other just be better at running and owning a business, because it's not just the guys that do RoofCon, Hunter and all those guys, Diego.
Yeah.
Good dudes. They do a great job at talking about, getting yourself prepared and being a better human being so that you can be a better business owner. But there's a profit motive there, right? They're selling something.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I don't fault them for that. I'm not saying that I fault them for that at all.
No, not at all.
But not everybody has access to that, right? Yeah. So it's more about like, how can we do this where people aren't, guarding their wallet? Look, I make my money running my roofing company. I'm not trying to sell you my coaching program or any of that stuff. And I think, like AA is a great example. You get a bunch of people with a common goal and they change lives, and there's no money involved. So that's kind of my thought on it.
No, I love that. Something I learned probably it's only 18 months ago, but the big takeaway or the big learning that I sort of uncovered was that you do need to be hanging around people who are like, let's say you're a business owner, you need to be hanging around other business owners who also have families if you have a family, because it just makes sense. They're going to understand your pains. They're going to understand your frustrations. They might be able to share some insights on what they're doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the same industry, but at least they're in the same mentality. They're in the same mindset and they're going to get it. So I love that you're putting that together. And I have seen you've started sort of just helping a few people, and not a few, but I've seen you take a few people under the wing and really show them the ins and outs and things like that. And it's really cool, man. It's very admirable.
Yeah,
It's
I
good
got
to
a
see.
kid that, he's in Louisiana, and he reached out to me. He's like, "Look, man, I'm really struggling here. I got some guys working for me." And he said, "Can you give me an hour a week?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And he's on it, man. I mean, every week, same time, you meet this. And so he asks really great questions, and we talk about the real things it takes to run a successful business, like really understanding every single facet of what you do. And, you have this, I've always heard this, type of mindset where it's like, well, you don't have to know everything in your business. You can hire for it. There's a big problem with that. And I'm not saying you have to be an expert of going up on the roof and installing whatever type of roof system it is, but you damn well better know at least pretty well all the roof systems that you install, so you can teach your guys how to sell them, right? And
Yeah.
you can hire the right crews to install those. And I think more importantly, you can watch somebody and make sure they know what they're doing. And if you don't, that's how you get screwed.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of learning involved for you to be able to effectively run your business. And you see it in your industry. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. Anybody with a laptop in their mom's basement thinks they can be a digital marketer. You know what I mean?
There's a few of them out there.
So he wants to learn, and he's reading the books that I've suggested to him, and he's talking to me about them. So yeah, man, I'm 100% willing to share what I got to help somebody, because he genuinely wants to be a good owner, so that the guys that work for him, he can stay in business and make sure they earn a living. And I take that really,
Yeah.
really seriously.
Yeah, I love that. So let's go back a little bit. You started a new location, moved to Tampa, but you're not from Tampa, is that right? You resided in Buffalo, nice chilly winters.
I'm
Well, you had an
born
operation
and
there.
raised in Tampa.
Oh, Tampa, you moved
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Gotcha.
My lovely wife moved here, and in 2008, everything crashed. So I think around 2009, 2010, we decided to move to Buffalo. I'd lived in Florida my whole life. I'm like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And it was good, man. I actually learned a lot. I went to work for a really big remodeling company there, and I really learned a lot from the owner. Man, I really did. It was a
Yeah.
super valuable. I was doing sales for them, and I was, their highest grossing salesman every year by a lot. I mean, I smashed,
Yeah.
Every sales record they had. And in turn, they were really forthcoming with kind of teaching me the business side of things, that how they did things, which was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
But their production department was a shit show. I mean,
Oh, wow.
it was pretty bad, and it wasn't that it wasn't organized. It was just that it's very difficult to find labor up there.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult. So I learned a lot with them. But anyway, yeah, I'm from Tampa. We started in Tampa, and then we just opened up another location down in Southwest Florida, obviously because there was a need after Hurricane Ian. So we're running 2 locations now, and it's that's another learning experience, man. Because there's things that you think and you don't realize you didn't cover those things until they crop up. So that's what we got going on now.
I love that. What are some of those things? Like, let's dig a bit into that you've experienced.
So you have these processes that are based on if everything goes exactly the way it should, right? You generally don't have, like on a standard operating procedure, you generally don't have a bunch of detours, because you can't you can't write out a process for everything that might come up. And I'll give you a good example. Down in Cape Coral, their building department absolutely does not function like any semblance of any sane building department ever would. They
Yeah.
here in my area, most of the time, you can pull a permit immediately. You can schedule an inspection, and the inspectors will be out there the next day to do your inspection. So it's a pretty seamless process. And so when we got down there and we figured out that like it's just complete chaos, you can't get an inspection the next day. You have to get whatever's available, and it could be 3 weeks. And
Yeah.
these are in progress, meaning while you're building the roof. These aren't final inspections. So you can't actually, yes,
Oh,
you
wow.
can't actually do the job or finish the job until these intermittent inspections are done. And so
Yeah.
we had to,
That's
yeah,
great.
so we had to figure out how to operate around that because we've never come into that situation before. So you just have to work with your installation crews and be able to have a production department that can learn on the fly, and we can all get together really quickly and figure out how we're going to operate around that. And so we've figured it out for the most part.
Yeah.
And the important thing on that is we pay our labor piece rate, meaning they only get paid with what they produce. And so they get really pissed if they can't just do their job and make their money. And so if you keep having roadblocks for them to be able to finish their job so they can make money, they're not going to work for you. So it's extremely challenging to keep production rolling really efficiently when you have several building departments that aren't efficient. And so I think that's probably the biggest one that I can give you, the biggest example I can give you recently.
That makes a lot more sense now. My buddy Tim Nussbeck, it was either just before the hurricane hit or just after, he messaged me and said 99% of the out of town contractors that come and hit this hurricane will be broke or bankrupt in 12 months, and all I want is a goddamn draw. But that makes a lot more sense with how you've explained it as to why that will happen. We obviously hope that doesn't happen, but those nuts and bolts, they're very important.
They are, and having a good production department is critical to be able to look at those challenges. And we had one person in our office. All she did was sit on the phone all day with these different building departments and try to figure out with them how to get these homeowners taken care of in a way that's somewhat coherent. Because I mean, look, they had a disaster to deal with. So I'm not faulting them. I mean, they just they got thrown to the wolves too. And so it was upon us to like kind of figure out, okay, these are their limitations, and how can we operate, knowing the limitations, how can we operate around that? I don't think a lot of people have the ability to do that.
No, there's like no attention around that. It's not sexy. The big branding and the big focus that we all see is sales and leads and whatever else and revenue, closing deals. But if there's no focus on the back end, it falls in a heap pretty quickly, doesn't it?
It does. And, guys like, big guys that are very experienced, like Apple Roofing, they were having issues too, and, people want to trash everybody. I've never heard anything but good things about those guys. And, they were having some issues, and they had to get it dialed in too. And it's the people that are going to take the perspective of like, how do I get this dialed in? How do I take care of my customers? And how do I, create processes so that we can deal with the conditions? And so how do we change to meet conditions? I guess would probably be the best way to describe that perspective.
And have you seen, like, just putting that type of value on the customer, have you seen them come back to you, or alternatively, have they sent you, family and friend and referrals and things like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, our referral game is super, super strong. And what I think's also an important distinction for everybody to know, like, I do not operate in the restoration space at all. 100% retail. When we go out,
Yeah.
When we go out and, even with Ian, even with stuff going on with Ian, we tell the homeowners, like, look, you get your check and then you hire us to do your roof. We're not, and the carriers now too in Florida, you call them up as a roofing contractor, they're just like, I don't even have to talk to you. Go fly a kite. You know what I mean? So those days are over. And so with being 100% retail, you have to knock it out of the park for your customers. Your reputation, your brand, and your reviews are everything, man. Because you gotta help people understand why they're going to spend a bunch of money with you and not price shop you, right? And so you better bring some value to the table.
Yeah. Absolutely. What's some of those value things that you guys bring? Like how do you guys separate yourself in a very competitive market?
My biggest thing is helping my sales guys understand how to set the right expectations with the homeowner. So that's number one. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
But we show them all the way through how we answer the phone, to our sales process, to our client intake process when they sign the contract, all the way through to the job completion, that we operate differently. And customer service is 100% at the forefront of what we do. And people, we always sort of, the way we set ourselves apart when we go out and we talk to the homeowners, we say, listen, like, you don't really know how badly you need a quality contractor until something goes wrong, right?
Yeah.
And we're extremely effective with how we approach that with a homeowner. And I think the other thing too is, instead of going out to talk to the homeowner and telling them what they need, our whole sales process is based on questions and not on information giving.
Gotcha.
So
it's very consultative.
Yeah, and it's more geared towards how do we relate to them, and how do we tailor our approach based on how they're viewing their project, right? And I'll give you a good example of this. My favorite quote from a book I read is, he said, in the information age, people are information rich, but context poor, right? And
that's great.
What that line means to me is, I've got to figure out what information these people have already gathered, meaning they do their internet research. When you ask them, what are your concerns with this project? Or what are you looking for in the company you hire? Or, I'm sure you've gotten other estimates. Have any of these other contractors talked about any installation materials or methods that you want me to include in my quote? And so if you ask questions like that, it'll give you a real insight into either A, they've done a lot of internet research, they've looked at, materials and reviews, and those are going to be a little bit harder to overcome because they already think they know everything, right? So all they're looking for is the pricing so that they can use whatever criteria it is. I still am baffled by the logic that a lot of people use to choose contractors, but they think they just need some numbers so they can pick whoever's best for them, when they actually don't really know what that is. And so, or you find out that they haven't really done a whole lot of homework other than looked at reviews. And then now we can sort of talk about that. So you just got to know who you're dealing with and sort of how they're viewing the purchase. And then we can approach them in a way that makes sense to them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see a lot of guys don't do it that way. So that's some great insights.
Yeah, and we go into the attic, which nobody does. And I find that just obscenely crazy that nobody goes in the attic and looks at, the ventilation, the plywood, and see if they have leaks and do all those things. And you'd be amazed how people are like, wow, you're the only one in the attic. You must know what you're talking about. We'll give you our business, right? It's just one simple step that I think is absolutely necessary that nobody does. So, yeah.
Do you think people don't do that from laziness? Are they trying to get out of there too quick, or are they just not experienced?
I think the answer is yes to all of those.
Gotcha.
And I think the other thing is they're learning from somebody that's not experienced, and so there's a dilution there of what actually needs to happen.
Yeah, goes back to what you were talking about before, where the focus is on, getting someone to sign a contingency or
Mhm.
whatever. They're trying to make a
Yeah.
sale. But if they don't understand the process and what needs to happen, it falls apart very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, your question was, what are some of those value things? And I think the biggest one is, we act in a manner that people can see that we're experienced, and my guys are really well trained, not only on the sales side, but also on the technical stuff. So they can really
Yeah.
help people, when they have questions and all of that stuff. And so I think the value is that everybody that comes to work for me is just very, very well trained all the way through sales and inspection processes so that people can get with it. And sometimes they figure out, that we might not be a good fit for them or vice versa. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's the real value we bring on the front end.
I kind of know the answer, but I'd like everyone else to hear. You'll send, the wrong type of customer away. You don't just take on anyone's business, I'm guessing.
We try. Sometimes they get through, and then they're nightmares. But
Yeah.
I'll give you a really concrete example of this. So one of my guys called me. So my sales manager was on vacation. So one of my sales guys said, "Hey, can we do a quick Zoom?" So we get on, and he said, "I gave this lady an estimate for her roof, and then all her soffit fascia is just completely rotted out. We got to do all of it, right?" And I said, "Yep, we got to do all of it."
Yeah.
He said, "Here's my pricing for it." And I looked at everything. I was like, "Yeah, you're pretty right on point with pricing. It was 15 grand to do all the soffit fascia, right?" So he comes back to me a couple of days later and says, she's really having a hard time getting over our pricing because there's guys that are telling them that they can just piece in the soffit fascia.
Yeah.
I said, okay, let me ask you a question. Do you want to deal with somebody that's hyper focused on price when we know as professionals, we're going to do this, we're going to piece this in, it's going to look like shit. We know it for a fact. She's going to be unhappy, and now we have a whole other can of worms that we got to deal with. Or do we want to be the professionals, tell her this is how it has to be done, here's why, here's our price, we'd love your business. If you don't want to do it this way, have a great day. And we didn't get her business. She's going to be somebody else's nightmare to deal with, right?
Yeah.
She was hyper focused on price. That's not what we do. We provide a solution, and we tell people what needs to be done so that they get the product that not only we can stand behind in warranty, but that they're going to be happy with.
Yeah.
And if they just don't see it that way, that's okay. We're just not going to do business together. I've learned that lesson so many times over the year, trying to fit into a customer's budget, and it rarely works out.
I've experienced the same sort of thing in this sort of industry. You have to know your values and what you stand for, and then stick by them. So it ends up hurting you, doesn't it?
It does. And, I think the other thing about that is if you have somebody that you can't help them understand the value of going with somebody that's a little bit, I wouldn't even say more money, but that's just more thorough, more detailed, is recommending really things from a best practices standpoint. And because of that, there's obviously value to that, and it's going to increase the cost. If they don't understand that, they're never going to see the value in all of the other things that you do behind the scenes that make all of that run smoothly. And so I don't want to work for those people anymore. I don't have to work for those people anymore. We've gained a reputation to where people are like, yes. And you can see it in our reviews. They're like, we paid a little bit more, but absolutely was worth the money. Everything went perfectly. Yeah. Or, hey, we had an issue. They took care of it. We're on top of it, whatever it is. So yeah, I don't, and then if they're assholes, that's a whole other situation. If they're assholes right off the bat, I tell my sales guys, like, look, if they're not nice and they're not pleasure to deal with, walk away. I'm dealing with one right now that slipped through, and it's just every single time, man.
Some of them are very crafty. They know what to say to get you to do the work, and then when it comes to the business end of things, they are a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, we get a 3-page email from him every single night. It's like
3 pages.
Really? Yeah, it just of nonsense. And after that, what's coming at the end of the job. Well, I had to manage this job, and I don't think I should have to pay the full. I know it's coming. So
yeah.
That's my take on that.
If you had to, what would be some advice if you were starting a brand new location or in the early days of building up a roofing and contracting business?
Are we talking about somebody that's got experience in the industry, or are we talking about somebody that's just sort of starting fresh and wants to get into the industry?
I would say we'd go with someone with some experience because that seems to be the common sort of theme. Hey, they're out there working for someone. They don't really like how it's being run, or they weren't treated
Mm.
right, and they know they want to have an impact and do something differently. So they start their own thing. Maybe we focus on that.
That's a little bit easier to. I think that's an easier one to kind of talk about.
Yeah,
The kid in Louisiana asked me the same question. He said, how did you get started? And I can only talk about my experience. And I'm sure there's
yeah,
other people that have had other paths to success. I will say a common theme that I've seen with guys or people, I shouldn't say guys because there's some really successful women in business too, but in this industry.
yeah,
But a common theme with all of us is they've really done the things that aren't sexy that a lot of people don't want to do. And one of the big ones that I fully believe is you have to sit down, start from where you want to end up, meaning ideally what you want your business to be, and then you have to work backwards. You have to write that out,
yeah,
and then you have to figure out what all those pieces and parts look like. And I did it over. So I knew I was going to open up my business. So I sat down, I did that exercise first, and I started writing all that stuff out. And it's evolved and it's grown. But I had a bunch of outlines of like sales and like marketing, sales, production, and
yeah,
post project, and I had all these outlines, and I just kept well, we need to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. And it really helped me organize the structure of my business. I think that's a really good place to start, because if you do that, if you have the discipline to do that and you sit down and you think through all of those things, it'll help you understand what you don't know,
yeah,
right? And then you can say, okay, well, I need to figure this part out. And I don't think it has to be 100% complete for you to start your business, but I think you
yeah,
really have to have a good understanding off of doing that, how your business is going to be structured. And I actually have been sitting down and writing an outline for that very thing, so that if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I need some help, I want your help. This outline actually starts out at the origin, like, okay, your marketing, what's your value proposition in your marketing? Who's your customer? Who are you going after? How do you plan to go after them, and who is going to execute your marketing strategy? So just even from just the beginning, how much money are you going to throw into your marketing? What do you hope to accomplish with that? Then to sales, are you going to have an actual sales process? What's that sales process going to look like? How are you going to train your people in that process? So I'm trying to create an outline to help these guys understand all the pieces and parts of that from the beginning all the way to post project. Yep.
yeah.
So
I
yeah,
love
so I
that.
think that my answer,
Start with the end in
yeah,
mind.
my answer is sit down and learn what your business, because you have this concept in your head, and we both know that until you get that stuff out on paper, you don't see the gaps, and then when you get it on paper, you can start to fill in those gaps, and it is extremely valuable.
I'd say that's the only way to start,
Mhm.
really. Reverse engineering the outcome and then building it sort of piece by
Yeah.
piece. Be a very cool resource, I gotta say.
Yeah, and I'm just doing that because, and there's nothing proprietary about it. It's basic logic, thinking through how you're going to run your business and I call it the customer journey, because at the end of the day, like, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to acquire, you're trying to sell, and you're trying to build and make that customer happy. So if you're looking at it from the customer journey, I think you'll be able to fill in all the gaps if that's sort of the perspective that you're looking at it from.
I love that. Customer centric, like the focus on the customer to get the win.
Dude, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business.
Yeah, you're out there asking for draws.
You're right. Yeah. Hey man. Yeah. Can I get a draw? Yeah. Yeah. Those are the crackheads that work for you, man. They need a draw every couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What's a question I should have asked you but didn't?
I think the question you should have asked me but didn't is, why am I so hyper focused on trying to help people in the industry?
That's a great question. Why are you?
Oh, well, for a couple of different reasons. So I'm going to give you the self-serving answer, and then I'm going to give you sort of the objective answer that I tell people. The self-serving answer is, I am very selfish and self-centered by nature. I always tell people, my dad's a real asshole and I inherited that. And I don't want to be like that. And so the antidote to that is being of service to others. And so I know that from my years in recovery. I know that from working with people. And so helping people and being of service to people is the antidote to self-centeredness, right? So that's the self-serving part. If you ask me, as a general, question, why do I do that? It's because I think that the industry really needs some of these voices, because there's some great people in the industry, man. I mean, there really is. And you don't hear from them because they're not trying to sell you anything. They're busy running their businesses, right? They're busy making an impact on people and servicing their customers. And I think there's a lot of bullshit going around on social media, and it's disingenuous. It's just gross to me. And so rather than being the anti of that, which Wayne Dyer always said, don't be against something, be for something, right? And so rather than being against that, I'm going to be for, guys that are doing well, guys that have some real value to bring to the industry that can actually help the younger guys coming up, give them good information without any ulterior motive. Now, I'm not saying that, we're going to coach these guys and give up all of our time and all of this stuff, but at least we're going to tell them the truth on what you need to be looking at. We're not charlatans trying to sell them some bullshit. Right. So I think we really need some authenticity going around. And I want to be one of those guys that says, hey man, let's really talk about the reality of the roofing business, because at the end of the day, man, the industry and the customers are the ones that suffer. And, one of the parts of our sales pitch that's extremely effective is we ask homeowners, do you know what the number one industry that has complaints in the Better Business Bureau? And we all know the answer to that.
What do they say? They don't know.
It's construction.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And we ask them, why do you think that is? And they've never really thought about it. Right? Yeah. And so the reason is, and I know the reason for this, there's a really low barrier to entry, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, we haven't done a good job helping really high quality individuals feel like this is a good path for them in the education system. We're always pushed towards, hey, you need to go to college. You need to, become an engineer. You need to become this, or you need to become a that. Nobody ever says, hey, you know what? You can go into trade. You can learn a trade, and you can actually have a really good business and impact a lot of people's lives in a positive way. Nobody is talking about that in school. So that's the other reason we have. So we get, as a majority, we get the guys like me who had a drug problem. And I went into the industry because I could make a decent, dollar, and nobody else would take me.
Yeah.
So luckily I sobered up and had some really good people in my life that taught me some stuff. And so I want to give that back. Yep.
I love that. You're leaving people better than you found them. That's amazing.
Hopefully.
That's good, my man. Hopefully. Corey, you've been great today, my good friend. Any final words before we wrap things up?
No, I appreciate what you guys are doing with some of the industry leaders that you're having on, and some of the things that you guys talk about, and I like the tack that you take with your sort of no bullshit approach, right? You don't call people out, but you let people know there's a lot of fuckery afoot. And if you don't want to participate in that fuckery, we're on that side of on the aisle. Right. And so very much like anything else, man, I appreciate that, we're kind of getting these people together and sticking together. And I'm hoping we can push out the bullshit and really,
Yeah.
get some good, authentic, content and people and, business owners out to the forefront instead of some of these ones that are out there now that I just can't fucking stand. So
Maybe they should jump in the ring with you.
I haven't been to the gym in a minute, man. I gotta get back to it. I mean, I've been, lifting weights, but I haven't been to the Muay Thai gym. But yeah, man, like I'll anybody that wants to hop in the ring, man, let's fucking go.
You'll drink from their skull.
I totally hate. I totally hate. I was like, yeah, I'll get in the ring with you, man. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so cool.
yeah. He never took me up on it.
Yeah, right. No wonder.
Yeah, there's a couple guys I'd really like to hop in the ring with for sure.
Have a different sort of conversation with them.
Let's really see what's what.
Yeah. Mate, where can people find you online if they want to connect and things like that?
I mean, you can find me on Facebook, man. Corey Combs. You can find me in the roofing groups. South Shore Roofing Exteriors is our business page. Or, you can reach out to me on our website is South Shore, ssrflorida.com. Or SouthShoreContractorsTampa.com. So that's how people can get a hold of me.
Well, that's it, my friend. Thank you very much. You've been amazing. And for our guests and viewers, stay tuned for the next episode.
That hour went by quick, man.
It did, didn't it?